Oh God, it's so exciting.
Happy Hail Bob Day.
It is a happy Hail Bob Day.
Hello, the Curse of Dam.
It's the best finishing score we've seen at 5-star level.
That was our elo coming into the competition.
Eventing Manager is back.
Best show that we have, Alphabetti Spaghetti.
Looking forward to seeing quality horses.
Still a great day for Ireland.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
I mean, you're a bit of an eventing geek just like us.
And it's time to get on with the show.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another series, a little mini series of Whole Box specials. And I am absolutely delighted that Red Mills have come on board with the best show that we have on the EquiRatings Eventing podcast, which is without doubt, and even Derm would agree on that now. And quite rightly, we've got Red Mills supporting us, and I'm delighted to say that I have got Naya O'Malley, one of the Red Mills nutritionists, on board with us to walk through a few areas that I think are really important with nutrition and feeding, which I think is such a key subject for horse owners and producers and riders. And I think some of it's probably quite poorly understood. And I think this is a really good opportunity that we can put together some really good information for everyone. So this is the first of 4 little episodes, little bite-size episodes for you. I'm delighted to introduce Naya. Naya, welcome. Welcome to the Whole Box. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this.
Brilliant. Delighted to have you. Delighted to get, as I say, to have the support of Red Mills. And I thought what we'd do on our very first little episode is, I think, really to just try and drill down into the basics and a little bit of an overview of what nutrition is and what we can do to try and sort of use this as the building blocks to try and help people understand what we're trying to achieve when we're putting together a bit of a nutrition plan for horses. So if we were going to go down to the building blocks, and now where should we start? What would you think that first key element that we can explain for people?
We're into the new year. It's January. The season's not far ahead of us, and it's all about preparation. So I suppose what I would usually advise is, look at your horse now. Look at the condition of your horse, where this is your starting point. So look at the coat, look at the feet, look at your muscle, look at your top line. Do you have some catching up to do? Is your horse looking well? I think to plan ahead now and prepare for when the season starts. So I suppose, the coat is a really good indicator straight off. That really sort of reflects what's going on internally. So if the coat is poor or lacking in condition, lacking in shine, that can be a sign that there's deficiencies in the diet, and it's kind of reflecting what those deficiencies are. Those deficiencies are having an impact internally. So I suppose the easiest one is to look at the coat color, and that's going to give you, if you've got sort of a coppery tinge, a kind of an orangey tinge to the coat, or a very rusty color, this is a sign that you possibly have a copper deficiency, and that would be number 1 to address. And very easy to address, copper supplementation with the likes of Copper Max. But this will just help to boost up the copper reserves. And, copper plays a massive role within the body in energy metabolism, bone density, elasticity of the tendons, the ligaments, the airways, the respiratory system. So that is a very easy one to address. You don't have the same worry about toxicity with copper as you would with some other supplements. So it's definitely one to address this time of the year, because you want to build up your reserves ahead of the system or the season. Then look at the coat condition, protein, diet deficient in protein. You're going to see a poor coat, poor feet. You might see poor muscle, poor top line. So address that. The horses aren't necessarily in a huge amount of work at the moment, but they still will need protein depending on the requirements, their age. And that's a good indication if they need extra protein in the diet.
I was just going to drill down into that a little bit. So when you were talking about protein, what is protein? Why is that such an important part of horses' diets?
Yeah, so I suppose the protein, it's needed for the muscle, for the top line, for the it's needed for the tendons, the ligaments. It's needed for the hoof condition. It's needed for the organs within the body. So protein is really a very important nutrient for the horse. It is about the quality of the protein rather than the quantity of it, and that's important. There's a number of amino acids. Some of those are essential to the horse, some of them aren't. So it's very important when you are feeding a horse. You need to look at the feedback. You need to look at the quality of the feed that you're feeding to ensure that you're getting the right proteins in there and not just filling the horse with poor quality proteins. If a horse is getting poor quality protein, they will actually excrete it. So it's quite taxing on the body. They tend to urinate more, they tend to sweat more. So always make sure you've got a good quality protein. You're far better off feeding a low protein feed that's exceptional quality than a high protein feed that's of poor quality. The horse will actually end up just excreting it. So it would be very important. So around, for mature horses, you put on a 10% protein, maybe a 12% protein. They've done a lot of their growth, they've done a lot of their development. Their protein requirements aren't particularly high. But say for a young horse coming along, the younger they are, the higher the protein because they've got so much growth ahead of them. So your 2-year-olds, your 3-year-olds, your 4-year-olds, you could be feeding them, say, a 12 or a 14% protein easily, as they progress up the years. And this will just help promote their growth and development, but always make sure it's a good quality protein.
Okay, and then one of the things that I think I come across a little bit when I speak to people out on the road is a little bit of not a confusion, but I think a little bit of a misunderstanding in the difference between the importance of what protein is, which is what, as you just said, is broken down into the amino acids that are then absorbed by the horse, and then they become the building blocks for turning that into muscle, turning that into bone. Also, then the importance within their tendons and ligaments. But I think the thing we're talking about is condition and therefore muscling. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people think that they worry about high protein diets and compare and being in a position that they're thinking of things that are like our high carbohydrate or high starch diets. Just give a little bit more of a sort of a wider understanding about what that difference is and the importance of where carbohydrate and starch fit into horses' diets as well.
Yeah, I suppose, it's a common misconception out there that protein equals energy. So the more protein I give the horse, the more energy or the more excitable he's going to become. It's not the case. The energy is down to the sugars and the starches and the cereal grain that we're putting in there. The protein really is going into the muscle and into the body of the horse. So there is this misconception. And I suppose it comes back from years ago, maybe from the racing industry, from the agricultural industry. As the horse was moving on in work, yes, their protein requirements increased, but so did their energy requirements. And feed bags were always labeled by the protein content. So everyone just assumed the higher the protein, the higher the energy. But it was also in that bag of feed that moved from a 10% feed to a 12% feed, 14% protein feed. The energy in that feed also increased, but people were missing that. That was on the label as digestible. Missing that part, and people were just assuming the higher protein was giving the horse the energy when it wasn't. So no, you can easily feed a 14% protein feed, say our cooling condition cubes. They would be very high in protein. They're 14% protein. They're very much a soybean hulls, alfalfa meal, very much a protein-based feed, but it is actually our coolest feed to give to a horse. It's all fibers, all oils, no cereal grain. And it just shows you how a very high protein feed can actually be a very, very calming feed for a horse. There is that misconception. I think we need to just move away from that and look at protein as in muscle, coat condition, hoof condition, development, and look at cereal grain as energy and pep and sprint.
Yeah, I think that's a really key differentiation. I think that's a really nice summary of that difference between those two things, and how by looking at them independently, you can be in a position of picking an appropriate food for condition without that concern of how that might be putting too much energy or making too much available energy for the horse. In some of our future episodes, listeners, we're going to talk about some particular sort of little scenarios or some situations and how we then might be designing a sort of a feeding plan. We're talking a little bit kind of a big picture in this first one. But what I also just wanted to move on to there then with that is how fat actually becomes a role in our feed and nutrition. So where does fat line up for horses? It's quite an important thing to consider when feeding them, but that can sometimes seem like something quite an odd thing for owners or riders to consider for their horses' food.
Yeah, so fat. Yeah, there's two things to look at. So first of all, giving your oils as supplements. There's so many oils out there. You've got your soy oils, your corn oils, all your different vegetable oils, your omega oils, and your fish oils, your linseed oils. So for me, what's really important would be supplementing your horses, especially during the winter months, but also during the summer months, is with an omega-3 oil. They're getting a lot of omega-6, a lot of omega-9 through their diet anyway, through the hard feed. A lot of the omega-3 in the hay will have dropped off. Once grass is very rich in omega-3, but once it's dried, a lot of that omega-3 will actually drop off. So supplementing with omega-3 would be hugely important with the likes of a linseed oil or a fish oil. So our Karen oil would be one of them, one of the products I would definitely recommend during the winter months in particular, but it is something I would recommend continuing throughout the season. It would have sort of an anti-inflammatory effect. So, the omega-6 and 9 are given a very much a pro-inflammatory. Both are important, but there tends to be more of a pro-inflammatory. They're getting a lot of the omega-6 and 9 naturally within their diet, and we just need to make sure that we're balancing it with the omega-3. So that's your oils and supplementing with your oils. In supplementing with your fats, within the feeds. So going back to looking at your horse in terms of weight, in terms of condition, two things here. We're looking at muscle and top line and that definition, but we're also looking for weight, your general weight on the horse. So I think it's a really good point, because a lot of people think of looking at the horse, he looks a bit slim, and they try feeding him up. Now, if you add too much fat within the diet, you're going to get a nice big rounded horse. But that's not quite the athlete that we need. We don't want our event horse being this lovely rounded fat horse. So it's very that balance right. It's key for our performance horses that they're getting that protein in our diet. We want muscle, we want definition. We want to look at that hind end and not see a lovely big round end, but actually see the definition of the different muscle bodies within that hind end, across that shoulder, across that neck. So I think it's important. Fat is important, but we need to make sure that we're also getting the protein in. And I think that's important. Looking at feeds, a lot of feeds out there would be, these low energy feeds. They're quite high in fat, which is great, but is the horse actually getting the proteins? And that's where our product, that Cool and Condition, has come in, where we're balancing the fat and the protein, and you're getting that nice balanced diet of fat, protein, and the energy for the horse. So it's a good question, because I think it's important.
And have you got some nice little some sort of practical tips on what people can do to, we were talking there about how we can monitor our horse, in simple terms. Yes, you can weigh them. Not everyone's got a weigh bridge. Very, very few people do have a weigh bridge. And that's possible to intermittently weigh your horse. And we've got weigh tapes as well, which I suppose, in my opinion, are a reasonable approximation. But again, they have great value if you do them regularly and routinely, because you can then be in a position whether you're winning or losing. But those points you just made there about that, looking at the whole horse, looking at their shape, looking at their muscle groups. So what can we do to have a bit more of an analytical assessment of that? Are there any sort of tips or tricks that people can be doing to monitor that in their own horses?
Yeah, no, good point again, because weighing the horses, you can argue against that as well, because there's nothing beats the eye. And a horse could have plenty of weight and be well-rounded, but it's the difference with that definition and muscle. So I think key is developing your eye. Look at your horse, study your horse, and especially if they're clipped out in the winter, you can see that. In the summer, you're going to see it very easily. But it's very hard to describe it, but you're looking for that definition. You're looking for that muscle, and to be able to feel it as well. You should be able to feel your horse and feel that muscle. You run your hand across the horse and feel that muscle and feel the definition between the different muscle bundles. It would be key, across the chest, over the shoulders. I think once people start looking for it, they will develop an eye for it, because that is crucial. So you're looking for body weight. The horse is well rounded, cover over the ribs, not too much. You're looking for your muscle definition. You're looking for that nice top line, nice shoulder, nice quarters. You're looking for the coat condition and quality in terms of a nice, soft, strong hair, a good, strong color. And you're not, if there's dryness there, or if there's weak hair, or if you've got long, straggly hairs, you've got some condition issues there you need to address with your, the omega-3 and some protein supplements. They would be key things you're looking for. Hoof health. Hoof grows so slowly that if you have some hoof issues there, you're looking at least 3 months before you're going to start seeing improvement in that hoof. So now's the time to address it. Is your hoof, is the hoof wall looking weak? Is it a little bit crumbly? Is it cracking in places? You need to address that now and start them on a hoof supplement now, because that does take a long time. And the hoof, if you think about it, the hoof is an extension of the coat. So it's also giving you an indication that there's an indication that there's a deficiency in the diet. And if the hoof and the coat are being affected, what other internal organs and tendons and ligaments are being affected as well? So, the outside is a good reflection of the inside of the horse.
I love that, talking about the hoof, like that, you've got something that you can visually monitor. And also, again, it really chimes with my, that team approach to managing performance horses, where actually, you can get some really good feedback from your farrier about, the hoof quality, and then extrapolating that to the overall health of the horse as a whole, and therefore, and condition and feeding, and it all interlinks. And it really is that team approach to managing these horses that everyone, it's amazing how much they can overlap. Farriers aren't there, well, they are there to put shoes on, but they can have such an impact, elsewhere in observing these horses.
Okay, they work with the hoof, but they know so much about the biodynamics of the horse, but even they're looking at horses all day, every day, and they've got such a good eye for horses. It's always worth, as you say, it's a team approach. Asking your farrier, how does my horse look? Or asking the vet when the vet comes in, how's my horse looking? Or even just talking with colleagues or other professionals in your field. It's always good to ask and get some advice, and that's how everyone learns and develops an eye. And look at other horses, look at other people's horses, and see and ask them what are they doing to get the horse looking like they do. But now's the time to address those, because it can take a couple of months for a horse to turn that around. And now it's definitely the time to do that.
Well, listeners, if you're interested in listening to a previous Whole Box episode where we had Greg Elliott, the British team farrier, involved and talking about a lot of those things, and about the the importance of your farrier in your team, I'd recommend going back and finding that and having a good listen. Couple of little things that I kind of advise on the ground. I do like recommending people taking photos of their horses, to be able to benchmark and have a look, take them from the side, take them from behind, same position, get your horse stood nice and square. And, it's just a little way of documenting and going forward. I totally agree with you, Nir, that learning with your eye and with your hands. And I do sometimes find that by the time your eye's telling you, unless you're hugely experienced, sometimes they can have lost a fair amount of condition. I like trying to find quite specific ways to get, to get a benchmark and get things to monitor. And particularly we're talking about top line. I like those bendy rulers and take outlines much like a saddler would. And if you can do that in a regular position at the withers or, the back of the thoracic vertebrae, so just behind the saddle, and you do those outlines every 2 or 4 weeks, again, it can be amazing how you can see whether you're winning or losing or staying the same in spite of whatever feeding or exercise program you're in. And, I think that would be a little tip that I think is something that people can do and really, demonstrate to their nutritionist or their vet, and they can say, well, you told me that this should get better, and I'm 8 weeks down the line and I can tell you that its top line is no better. Look, this is its outline, and then you can start looking a little bit deeper if you think that there's a concern there. So that's a little one that I like and highly recommend to everyone, really. That can be quite effective.
Really good idea.
Cool. Well, look, I love this. I think this has been a great opening, great little overview, some really good little examples in there. Love that, loved your example about the copper supplementation. I think that's a really big thing as well. Listeners, we're going to go into 3 more episodes where we're going to be a little bit more specific about particular things, and I can get some more pearls of wisdom and some gems out of Naya here, and I hope you'll be listening to our next episode. So thanks, everyone, and I hope you listen to the following ones.
Thank you for listening to the Epiratings Eventing podcast.
Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I look forward to having you back with us soon.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more.
Listeners, we'll speak to you again soon.